5 years ago, I was a senior in high school, on top of the world, thinking that nothing could touch me. You know, the feeling as a kid when you were the oldest one in school and you and your friends thought everything was incredibly easy. This particular night, we found out that we were not invincible. In fact, we were the exact opposite. It was just another Friday night, and my friends and I were up to our normal shenanigans. Movies, cards, board games, nothing too crazy. After the games had come to an end, we went back to the closet to find another one, when my friend Tom reached to the back of the closet and found an old Ouija board. As he pulled the box out and brushed it off from the dust that had accumulated over what must have been years, he glanced at us with a quizzical grin on his face. "Who's interested?" he said. We all remained quiet as we surveyed the room, none of us wanting to be the one who was too scared to participate. Collectively, we all agreed that we would try it out. Some of us were more hesitant than others. As Tom sat down the box, another friend chimed in that we should go to the cemetery to add to the experience. Ignoring the obvious ignoramus idea, we all loaded up in the car and set out for the cemetery. Upon arrival, we were all a bit timid. There was an eerie fog that conveniently cast over the visible parts of the cemetery. We drove to the middle and broke the board out. None of us really knowing what to do, we all placed our fingers on the piece and began to ask questions. "Is there anyone here? How old are you? What was your profession? What's your name?" The questions went on and the answers were flowing. After several questions, we were able to put together that we were communicating with a man by the name of Greg, who was once a police officer that got tangled up with the wrong crowd when he was only 35. Greg went on to tell us more and more, and at this point we were all flabbergasted, and we began to accuse one another of moving the piece. In the midst of the accusation, a set of headlights pierced through the milky fog and sent all of our stomachs turning. We were speechless, overcome with fear. As the car approached, we all looked at one another, not quite sure what to do. The car parked behind us, and a man exited and began to walk towards us. I was in the back and looked out the rear window and noticed that there was lights at the top of the parked car. Somewhat relieved, I blurted out that it was a cop. I say somewhat relieved because we were technically trespassing on private property at 2 a.m. The man approached the window and knocked his flashlight, peering into the car to see what was going on. Tom, the driver, began lowering the window to speak to the officer. The gentleman began to question us, asking what we were doing. We replied that we were simply messing around with a Ouija board and did not mean any harm. We told the officer that we would leave. To our surprise, he did not seem mad at all. He was concerned that we were either drinking or doing drugs, and when he saw that we weren't, he seemed to ease. He simply told us that we could not be here past dark and that we had to leave. Everyone was relieved but me. I sat in the back seat unable to talk. The officer walked away and the rest of my friends let out a huge sigh of relief. When I finally was able to form words, I uttered the question, "Someone tell me that you saw his name badge." They replied, "No, why does that matter?" I stuttered again and said, "His name was Greg." Tom immediately started the car to follow after the cop car and was able to flag him down right before we exited the cemetery. We rolled down the window, trying to think of an excuse to get his name and prove that I was not crazy. The others were all quiet when I spoke up from the back. "Thanks for being easy on us, officer." Then I paused, waiting for him to fill in his name. "Greg," he chimed back. "Don't worry about it. I was a kid like you once." After that, he rolled up his window and drove off. The car was quiet until I spoke up. "I told you guys," I exclaimed. Everyone was shaking. Everyone was talking about this and that and all their different types of theories the whole ride home. Once we got back to Tom's house, we went to the local sheriff's website to try to find our friend Greg. We looked at the pictures of all the different officers, and there was nobody by the name of Greg. We were all scared, hearing things that were probably just in our minds playing tricks on us. All of our hearts were beating wildly as we sat in the basement talking about exactly what happened. Whether you believe in Ouija boards or not, what happened that night will stick with each and every one of us. Too many variables lined up that night for it to just be a coincidence.